I want you to imagine an app where women can warn each other about dating potentially dangerous men, and those men's reputations can be changed with one single post. It's a real app. You don't have to imagine. It's called the T app. And the internet right now is debating whether it's the most powerful dating safety tool ever made or if it's the start of a surveillance nightmare. And on this episode of Healing with August Wilde, we're going to be looking at both sides of this argument, taking a deeper look and seeing if we can find some common ground. T was launched in 2023, not as a dating app, but as a dating safety platform with a goal of helping women feel safer when navigating the chaos of online dating. It came with features that sounded revolutionary: reverse image searches to catch fake profiles, public record lookups to spot criminal history, and probably the most famous one for the T app, it was a community. It was a way for women to share anonymous experiences about men they've either dated or encountered. At first, it felt like, finally, a space to protect other women. The founder of the T app, Sean Cook, was inspired to create the app after his own mother was catfished by someone with a criminal past. He built T to be what dating apps weren't: accountable, transparent, and protective. And at first, people loved it. Over 1.6 million women signed up for the T app. But somewhere along the way, men felt like the mission of the T app went from let's protect women to let's drag men. Most women use the T app for its protective functions, warning other women or to be warned by other women about potentially dangerous men. But some women use it to dox men, use it to ruin the reputations of men. So where do we go from here? What started as a tool for protection is now a flashpoint for internet debate. So on today's episode of Healing with August Wilde, we are not picking sides. I'm going to say that again. We are not picking sides. We're asking, is there any way to find common ground between protection and privacy, between warning others and giving other people room to grow? Let's go ahead and go into segment 2, where we look at both sides of this argument. On the surface, the divide seems pretty simple. One side, majority women, say the T app is empowering and it's protective. The other side, typically men, say it's problematic and it's dangerous. But when you dig deeper, you realize they're both reacting to the same thing: fear. So let's look at side 1. This side says this app protects us. These are typically people who've been burned, lied to, manipulated, hurt, and not just emotionally, sometimes even physically. And they see the T app as a form of community protection that dating apps and society have consistently failed to offer. And honestly, looking at the stats, they're not wrong to feel afraid. 1 in 3 women have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 19% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone they've dated. On dating apps, 57% of women aged 18 to 34 say they've experienced or received sexually explicit messages they did not ask for. And according to Pew Research, 46% of women say they don't feel safe on dating apps at all. So when the other side of this argument says something to the debate of the T app is just used for gossip, it's just used to ruin the reputations of men, this side says men aren't held accountable. We've been gaslit. It saves us. And even if it saves just one woman, this app is worth it. A majority of us are not looking to ruin your reputation. We are looking to protect each other from dark, evil men. That's side 1. But let's take a look at side 2. This app is dangerous. This group sees something darker about the T app. They worry about fake accusations, reputation damage, and the mob mentality of anonymous communities. Their fear sounds like, what if I've changed? What if you're only telling one side or partial parts of the story? What if my name lives on there forever and nobody gives me an opportunity to change or show that I have changed? And the statistics add weight behind some of their concerns. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 8 to 10% of sexual assault allegations are estimated to be false. So that's rare. That's not helping the case, but it's enough for this side to say, I could be part of that 8 to 10%. A 2021 YouGov poll found that 49% of Americans say cancel culture has gone too far, and 40% believe it discourages people from expressing their opinions. In that same poll, 62% of men under the age of 30 said they're afraid of being falsely accused in the post #MeToo dating climate. 25% of HR professionals report having seen employees face professional consequences due to social media posts that are unrelated to their work, reflecting rising concern about online reputational performance. So again, for this side, the app doesn't feel like justice. It feels like being on trial without defense. You are guilty before you are proven innocent. You are not innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty till proven innocent. To this side, the T app is like a digital scarlet letter. Once your name's on it, even if it's for something small, you will never get a second chance. So that's both sides of the argument. But on Healing with August Wilde, what I like to do is I like to dig a little deeper. So in segment 3, what we're going to do is we are going to dig deep to try to identify the real root of the issue. Digging deeper now, let's start with the woman's side. There was a question that went viral a while back. Someone asked women, would you rather be stuck in the woods with a bear or with a strange man? And the internet went crazy because the overwhelming answer from women without hesitation was the bear. Because in their words, at least they knew what they were going to get with the bear. At least they knew 10 out of 10 bears want to hurt me. 1 out of 1, 2 out of 2, 3 out of 3 bears want to hurt me. I know the bear's intentions. And men were shocked. They were confused. They were even like insulted, right? Men were saying, you would really rather be face to face with a bear, something that will tear you apart and it'll kill you. And it's not going to be pleasant. You would rather be face to face with that than one of us. But take a step back. I want you to think about the stats that we mentioned earlier in this episode. And those stats are scary for women at all, and period. Those stats are very scary because 1 out of 3 women are going to experience some kind of assault from an intimate partner. That's insane. That means a woman going on a date with someone they don't know, obviously, most likely it's someone they don't know. They have no idea what this guy's intentions are, whether they're carrying from past experience or just statistically speaking. That's a scary place to operate from. But now let's look at it from the men's side. As a boy, I could only speak for myself. When I was growing up, I used to hear the phrase, nice guys finish last. And when you're a kid, they say it as a joke, but the older you get, the more they're serious about it. And you look around and you realize that phrase is true for the most part. For 25 years, that phrase was my reality. Most men, whether they will admit it or not, most men have a story about losing someone that they wanted to date because they were too nice. They were too available. They were too easy to get. They're too eager to please somebody. They text back too fast. And when that happens enough times, men stop asking, what do I want in a relationship? And we start asking, what kind of guy do women want? If it's not nice, then what is it women actually want? And who was it that I saw winning? Or who is it that most men see winning? It's not the guy who's vulnerable. It's not the guy who's sensitive and in tune with his feelings. It's the guy who's vague. It's the guy who disappears and he comes back whenever he wants. It's the guy who never says too much, never cares too deeply, and he never shows emotion. It's the guy who might even lie. So what do? We start comparing ourselves to these guys. We even ask those guys, how do you do it? I've asked those guys, how do you do it? And I will never forget the answer. It's 2 words. Stop caring. That's it. That's the secret. You disregard feelings. You're mysterious. You make demands. You're vague. You don't chase. You don't ask. You don't feel. So we buy into it because seemingly it works. We start building our entire identity around that model. We stop being honest. We stop being available. We stop being ourselves. And then a shift in the dating culture happens. Some of the men that taught us how to move, how to get attention, how to win women over, how to be a man, those men end up getting exposed as monsters, people who've done terrible things. If you look up Me Too, you could see some of those stories, some of those examples. We allowed ourselves to be taught by these guys because we were young, we were lonely, and honestly, we were too prideful to admit, I just want to be loved. We were too prideful to admit, I only acted this way because it's the only way I know how to get women to like me, and I don't want to be alone. We settled for whatever worked, even if that meant losing parts of ourselves in the process. And now those men, those monsters, are being exposed. But here's the thing that most people miss. Men aren't just scared of being exposed. They're scared of realizing some of the things that they said, the way they flirted, the way they withheld their feelings or manipulated a moment. They're scared of realizing that it wasn't harmless. It was harmful. But let's be clear. This is not to sympathize with monsters. Fuck those guys. This is to explain the defensiveness of the boys that the monsters influenced. And you wonder to yourself, secretly, behind all the words that you say on the internet, you wonder to yourself, am I next? And then suddenly your wall goes up. Not because you're afraid of being exposed, but because you were never taught how to be anything else. And that is what scares you. So what is the similarity between these two sides? Is it men versus women again, like it always is every 3 months? No, the issue's a lot deeper than that. The real issue of this debate is a lack of empathy for each other in society. Women don't trust men's intentions. Men don't trust women with their truth. And we don't talk about it. We just think about it to ourselves and we prepare ourselves for the worst. Women armor up with caution. Men armor up with silence. And in the middle, nobody feels safe. We've got women who've been conditioned to anticipate harm, and we've got men who anticipate to hide the parts of themselves that are human just to survive. And we say safety, but what we mean is control. We say communication, but what we mean is strategy. We say dating, but what we're really doing is defending. Because the second someone lets their guard down, they risk being blamed, labeled, or misunderstood. Or worse, all the above. Women who are hurting don't believe men are capable of change. And men who are scared don't believe anyone will hold the space for them to change. So everybody doubles down and we never talk about the real shit because we're too busy defending who we used to be. And as long as we do that, healing will never happen. And we are doomed to repeat the cycle. We, as a society, will never get better if we don't try to understand each other. So again, the deeper issue here is a lack of empathy for each other. We need to try to understand each other's positions. And I'm not talking about the monsters. Now I want to move into segment 4, where I share a little bit of my experience using AI.
If the T app existed when you were younger, do you think you would have ended up on it? And if so, what kind of story do you think someone might have posted about you?
If the T app existed when I was younger, most particularly my college days, during my drinking days, I for sure would have been labeled as a creep. I would have been labeled as inappropriate, probably immature, sensitive, I trauma dump, and that I'm a sloppy drunk. Sticking on that last one, I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't handsy, but I was for sure unfiltered. I would say whatever came to my mind, mainly because for a long time, I would make my friends laugh with my wildly inappropriate jokes. And I was told once that laughter is a quick way to, if you can make a woman laugh, then you have a way to her heart. And I thought, oh, if I can make my friends laugh with these inappropriate jokes, then I could do that same thing for women. And some women liked it, but those women ended up being my friends, not someone I dated. And the women who didn't like it, quickly just stayed away from me, which is fine. But when you're drunk, you don't take it that same way. You especially when you're drunk and insecure like me. Insecure is probably something else they would have said about me. When you're drunk and insecure like I was, you don't take it like, oh, they don't like my sense of humor. You take it like there is something wrong with me. And that's when you start like trauma dumping. And I don't think anyone would have wanted to listen to that, especially at a party. So yes, I do. And I do think I would have ended up on that app, but I don't think like 15 people would have said something, probably like one or two.
Thank you for being that honest. Let's keep going deeper. If someone had written about you back then, not lying, but only telling the parts where you were sloppy, inappropriate, or too much, and left out the context, how do you think it would have felt to be represented that way publicly? Do you think it would have made you change, or would it have pushed you further into shame and self-destruction?
The short answer to the first question is I don't have to try to think about how it made me feel to be represented that way publicly. It hurt, but not because of what women were saying about me, but more so because who they were saying it to, and they were saying it to people who were around me at that time. And I was hurt because these were people I called my brothers. So my brother is in the room with someone who says, oh, hey, this girl felt uncomfortable by Marco's joke. My brother doesn't take that opportunity to say, hey, I get it. He was wrong for that. But I do want to say he's not creepy. He's just going through something. Or he's not creepy. He just likes to make people laugh. But I'll talk to him about it. I feel like that would be fair. Because to your question, that was going on. But it was delivered to me like a joke. Like we were all bonding over the stupid shit I said the day before. And not just me, like all of us. We all said stupid shit. But I was the one who did it the most frequent. And, you know, when someone calls you out for your behavior behind the scenes and you're insecure like I was, what I actually did was I doubled down on my behavior out of insecurity that I already hated acting that way anyway. I hated behaving like that. I hated making myself the butt of the joke. I hated joking on people, but I didn't know another way to socialize. And not that this makes it right, but knowing that that was the extent of my creepiness, was that I was just wildly inappropriate. I used to say, you know what? If they don't like me, fuck them. And I think that was definitely wrong for me to think about. So to answer your second question, it didn't make me change initially. It made me go further into self-destruction up until probably around 2017, where I literally like punched glass after a public argument with my girlfriend at the time, and it was embarrassing. So it was so embarrassing that I never returned. I feel so much shame just even thinking about that time, or I used to feel so much shame thinking about that time.
When you look back now, knowing the behavior wasn't violent or criminal, but still made people uncomfortable or hurt, do you believe someone should have been able to post about it? In other words, do you think calling someone out publicly is the only way people like your past self would have changed? Or was there another way?
To answer your first question, should people have posted about it? Yes, absolutely. Because that's their version of the story. And that's what I get for being a blackout mess or being a drunk idiot. You know, contrary to what people might think about me, that is how I felt at the time. And that's how I feel to this day. But if you tell your story, I do want to share mine, not because I'm going to ruin your character. I most likely don't even know enough about you to tell you about your character. But context is important. And I think that that's what's missing in this conversation is context. So when I think about calling people out publicly, I think about, as a trainer, people don't respond very well to that. People don't respond well to public humiliation in order to change. People like their feedback behind closed doors. People like their feedback personal, and they like to know that it's coming from somebody who cares about them, right? So me at the time, it was effective, not at that moment, but it was effective over 5 years, because what it did was it isolated me. It pushed me out. It forced me out, whether they meant to or not. And it forced me into this place to not only get sober, but to really think about how did I get here? What did I do to get me in this position? I had to think about my insecurities. I had to think about the people that I hurt. I had to think about the people I was projecting on. And it worked for me, but to be honest, I'm not the example that should be used because, again, most people don't like or respond well to public criticism. But I do have to say, my issue was never the exposure. And to this day, my issue will never be the exposure. People who don't know me have every right to say whatever they feel about me. That doesn't matter to me. The one that bothers me is the people I were calling my closest friends at the time, not my close friends today, but people back then. They would just let these rumors fly because I was annoying. At least that's the way it comes across. It's like, you know what? I try to tell this guy to stop drinking. He doesn't do it, so fuck it. If people want to have this opinion about him, they can. And that's cool. I understand that. But because you knew me at the time, I feel like the better way to go about it was, okay, we've asked this guy to stop drinking and he doesn't. We really love the guy. Let's ask him, like, what's going on? Like, why does he feel the need to keep drinking this much? I'm not trying to cape. It's 100% on me that I drank. I'm just saying that for most people, exposure is not the way. Exposure is not the thing that hurts. What hurts is being misrepresented in the exposure.
You said your issue wasn't the exposure. It was the way people handled it. They cared more about their reputation than your healing.
I didn't say
So
that.
here's the question. Do you think more men would take accountability if they felt called in instead of just called out?
Called in, huh?
Or do some men only listen when the fallout finally hits their ego or their access?
I think a lot more men would change their behavior if they felt it was safe to do so, if they felt like they were in an environment that was safe to change their behavior. In my personal opinion, I feel like men don't change their behavior because they're typically in environments that celebrate or champion their behavior. Take me, for example. Every time I did something stupid in the beginning of my drinking days, there was a lot of laughter and cheering. And it wasn't just me. There are a lot of different stories outside of myself or the fraternity, outside of the Greek system, where people do stupid shit and it gets celebrated. Typically for men, I would say. Traditionally speaking, I feel like men are praised for, this is just an example. Typically speaking, I feel like men are praised for the number of women they are able to sleep with. Unless, of course, it's by force, but I don't include those type of men in admiration discussions. But again, most men are praised for the number of women they sleep with. But what people don't tell you is that in order to sleep with that many people, sometimes you do like scumbag shit. You have to lie. You have to manipulate. You are hurting people's feelings. You're playing with their hearts. You're playing with their emotions. Maybe you're making promises that you know you're not going to keep. And that's the part that no one talks about because they know that it's wrong. And men don't pay attention to it because we're just so focused on the result. And not just the result, we're focused on how the result feeds into our reputation. If we lived in a world where for men, you were ashamed of sleeping with women, like a bunch of women, I don't think that we would feel this way outside of obviously procreation. So if men felt like their reputation and their respect would go away because of changing their behavior, then yes, 100%. I think that more men would be inclined to change and that they would change effectively in that environment as opposed to what's going on now where nobody likes to get called out in the manner that they're being called out. Nobody likes being called out because, again, in a training sense, in my job, my 9-to-5 job, if you will, I deal with training people. And like I said earlier, you cannot train somebody in front of an audience because they're just going to put their walls up and they're going to start defending themselves instead of listening to you. They're going to shut down instead of trusting you. And we're not going to get anybody to change by calling them out. So, I mean, I guess calling them in would be a better way to look at that.
You just said something big. People don't care if you change. They just want you to feel what they felt. So I'm asking you now, what's the cost of that kind of accountability culture? What happens to healing and to growth when we're more focused on revenge than redemption?
See, I can't call this accountability culture. I have to call it for what it is. It's revenge culture. We as human beings, we crave or not crave, we do everything we can to protect our value, protect our worth. And when we feel like that's taken from us, we do everything we can to either get it back or to redeem ourselves. We try to prove ourselves, especially on social media. So I call it revenge culture because we're making the next person pay the price for the last person. I see people on Twitter going at each other. People who aren't even on the app or have probably never even opened the app are making assumptions about the other gender or the other side or whoever uses the app when they don't know each other. And I think that that's creating this environment where those people probably don't even want to talk to anybody that's not in their own immediate circle. For me personally, when I think about people going on the T app and either spreading lies or telling exaggerated half-truths, my first instinct isn't to try to break this person down. My first instinct is to ask, what is this person going through? And what part did I, as a man or as a person, play in making this environment where they feel like they have to do that instead of talking to somebody, instead of talking things out? Like if my ex were to come out and say complete lies about me, who I am today, I would ask myself, what did I do to make this person do that as opposed to come to me and talk things out? Now, for me, it's probably the content piece, but regardless, like we need to create an environment where we talk to each other. So what happens to actual healing and growth is it becomes stunted because we're so focused on redemption and not results. If I'm speaking for myself, I know that that was the case for me because I don't feel like I started growing and having this kind of mentality I have today until probably late 2024. By the time you hear this, I spent most of my life or my adult life trying to redeem myself for my drinking days, for my college days. So I hope that answers your question.
Let's move into the final segment.
So what did we learn today? What I personally learned is that the T app is not the root of the problem. It exposed one. It's a reflection of the problem. It's a reflection of women who don't feel safe. And it's a reflection of men who don't feel understood. It's a reflection of a world where silence never felt safe and shouting never brought peace. And in the middle of all that noise, the only way out is someone being willing to say, this stops with me. The truth is, the T app is a mirror and it shows us exactly where we are as a society, divided, defensive, and desperate for safety. Most people use the T app to protect themselves. Other people use it to punish people who hurt them. And the people being posted on there, they're just scared of being misunderstood. They're scared of being misrepresented. They're scared that their worst moment might be the only story about them that gets told without them having an opportunity to show the people that they've changed or that they're willing to change. And I get that because I've lived it. There was a time in my life where I absolutely would have ended up on this app. I was messy, I was drunk, I was unfiltered, I was hiding my pain in my jokes, and my jokes did not land. And sometimes the only difference between funny and creepy is whether or not someone feels safe with you. I don't need to argue about whether someone's version of me was accurate. If that's how they felt around me, I'm not going to try to take that away from them. And the truth is, I probably wouldn't have changed if people didn't start walking away from me. But what I do take issue with is when people start pretending that healing comes from exposure, because it doesn't. Healing comes from honesty, from accountability, from facing what you've done and not needing an audience to clap when you finally confess what you have done. Growth is not a headline. Growth is a decision. And it doesn't happen when you're being screamed at. It happens when you're ready to stop hiding. So if you're afraid of being exposed, I want you to ask yourself, are you scared of lies being told about you? Or are you scared of the truth you haven't faced yet? Every week on Healing with August Wilde, we like to end the episode with a challenge. And for this week, I want you, if you're listening, to ask yourself, is there someone I've hurt, even unintentionally, who never got the version of me that knew how to say sorry? And instead of asking whether they overreacted, I want you to ask yourself, can I see from their perspective how my actions might have made them feel unsafe, unseen, or disrespected? Because healing doesn't come from being right. It comes from being real. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is admit you caused harm, even if you never meant to. Thank you so much for listening to an episode of Healing with August Wilde. I am your host, August Wilde. I'm a hip hop artist from California, and I'm focused on growing and healing with my audience. If you listened to this episode and you agreed, or even if you disagreed, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I would encourage you to like, comment. It helps not just the channel, but it helps other people who might need to hear this content, whether it's for dialogue purposes or maybe something that they can take away and implement into their own personal lives. Either way, I appreciate you for sticking with me to the end of the episode. Please consider supporting me at August Wilde. That's August WLD on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.